Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol 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 Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Nityananda Rai Jaya Nityananda Rai Nityananda Rai Jaya Nityananda Rai Jaya Nityananda Rai Jaya Nityananda Rai Nityananda Rai Jaya Nityananda Rai Nitai Hey Nitai Hey Nitai Hey Nitai Hey Nitai Hey Nitai Hey Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari Gaura Hey 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 Gaura Jaya Radha Madana Mohan Radha Madana Mohan Radhe Radha Madana Mohan Radha Madana Mohan Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe 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 Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Omasto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gauri Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Baladev Vidibhushan Gauri Vrantacharya Ki Jai Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamanand Prabhu Treya Ki Jai Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bharta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Hardas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sika Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navati Dham ki jai. Ganga Jamuna ki jai.
Jai.
Brihat Mridanga ki jai. Sankirtan Yaga ki jai.
Jai.
Nam Bhajan ki jai.
Jai.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra ki jai.
Jai.
Nishingadev Bhagavan ki jai.
Jai.
Prahlad Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi
Hari
Hari Hari Bol. Om Aginati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamanapethyam Apetikrityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti tam mayatayotarvo binidustam sarvabhutam hridim munimanatoshmi bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay shiptashta karmarita rangamadye kripa tvam sharanam prapana vrinde namaste charanarvindam bhajami radham aravinda netram smarami radham madhurashmitasyam vadami radham karuna bharadram tato manasti katyena kapi Tavai basmi najivami tvai vina iti vignaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dhanvat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazarashishi Mad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazarashishi Mad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And unto our preceptor Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchitananda Namine Gauda Shakti Swarapaya Rupanuga Varayate. And unto all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So, coming to our Falshruti. Tomorrow is Lalita Astami. I mentioned yesterday that I thought it was today, but it's tomorrow. And Saturday is Radhastami, next day. So we're into the first 5 now. Just a second. 1 minute. Falshruti. Priti Vitayata Kata Dharma Nama Chale Bhagavata Kahe Sava Paripurna Chale.
As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 1st Chapter, 2nd Shloka. All the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
So it's interesting here in his Falshruti that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants to mention the Srimad Bhagavatam, because actually this is like a synopsis of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it has the Bhakti Sar, the essence of Bhakti is here from the very beginning. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing that title, that name, to our forefront for us to consider the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially this 112, Dharma Projita Kaita Vrata Parama Nirmat Saranam Shatam. There's no envy whatsoever. There's no anomaly within the whole Bhagavatam. It's totally, absolutely pure. There's no deceptive, misleading to dharmas, etc. So this Jaiva Dharma is of a similar nature. It's completely pure, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur will reiterate.
Chale dharma chadikara satya dharma mati chaturvargatyaji dhara nitya prema gati. One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and observe his mind in true dharma. In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of Nitya Prem.
All these dharmas, dharma that is mentioned here is worldly dharma, varnashram dharma, etc. And artha is the acquisition of wealth, and karma is to enjoy sense objects, and moksha is liberation from this material world. All these dharmas are only pertaining to the body. They're the four purusarthas, not the fifth purusartha. So Mahaprabhu, he will reject these, especially in the Rai Ramananda Sangbad, this beautiful treatise within the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Mahaprabhu is listening to Ramananda Rai speak the essence of Shuddha Bhakti. So we have all these different examples to remind us of what is Shuddha Bhakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's only intention is to please, please, please hear about Shuddha Bhakti. Yes, we know Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha are what general people are following. But please, my dear friends, he's saying, we want to know what is the fifth Purusartha, what is the essence, what is the Bhakti Sar of life, what is the essence of devotion. And the essence of devotion is only within the activities of the gopis. They are demonstrating the essence of upasana, of worship. Ramya kachit upasana braja, vardura vargena vakalpite. This upasana, this worship, is performed by the gopis. They have the highest worship and the highest exhibition of love known to man. So that is our goal. And that has nothing to do with the material world whatsoever. We are following that path. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants to make that very clear.
Amitva mimamsa brahme nija jada buddhi nirvishesha brahma jnani nahi chita shuddhi. Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for nirvishesh brahma jnana.
So Nirvishesh Brahma Gyan is the highest, we can say, that the materialist can achieve. Moksha, liberation. For the material body to be freed from all suffering and to aspire for the Brahmajyoti, for Nirvishesh Brahm, that impersonal realization. It's the most tragic state of consciousness we can consider, because all desire is cooked. There's no more desire in that place of the Brahmajyoti. We discussed before, you said about suicide. It's spiritual suicide completely to go into that realm of the Brahmajyoti, because your desires are cooked. You don't have any desire to move anywhere else. And if your desire is not functioning, so to speak, if you're satisfied, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanchati, no more lamentation, no more hankering, no more desires in that realm. That is the condition of that realm. The qualities of that realm, we understand, are Gyan and Vairagya. And they're described in Jaiva Dharma as impersonal qualities. Gyan you can find in a library. Vairagya is like a negative attribute. They're not personal attributes like the other four qualities of Bhagavan. Beauty, you must have an object that is beautiful, right? To describe beauty, there must be an object. Strength, there must be an object of strength. Opulence, there must be a person who possesses that opulence to be opulent. Fame, there must be an individual person to have that fame. So these are attributes of a personal feature, whereas Jnana and Vairagya are not. They're not attributes of personality. They're attributes of a void, so to speak. And that is the nature of the Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is the Chit Shakti. It's everything there. It's the Chit potency. The Chit potency represents knowledge. It does not have Sandini. Sandini is the potency of existence. Sat, that means existence. Anything that has existence comes under the umbrella of what we call Sandini. That is manifested by Baladev Prabhu. But that Sandini Shakti is not present in the Brahmajyoti because there's no existence in the Brahmajyoti. It's just glorious, lovable, warm, sweet light. Very, very attractive. And you'll forget everything about everything in that very complacent, we can almost say complacent. There's nothing happening. So very dangerous, dangerous place, that Nirvishesh Brahm. And that's the only other option that the materialist has if he doesn't find bhakti, if he doesn't have the sincerity in his birth to seek devotion, if by his previous sanskars he can't come into contact with anyone who has devotion, because that's how it works. If you've got sukriti and sanskar from previous birth, then it's more likely you will come into someone who has that devotion. And it's only in that company that bhakti will actually manifest. Bhaktya sanjataye bhaktya. Bhakti comes from bhakti. We have said so many times. This is the principle. So this Nirvishesh Brahm, he says, purify by such delusion, by endeavors for Nirvishesh Brahm, such a delusionary path. But tragically, so many, all spiritual groups, so-called, on the planet, that aren't following the pure teachings of the Veda, if they're not following this path of bhakti, then they're focused, you will see, if you want to examine any of them, and there are thousands of them, you know, mystical groups or spiritual groups around, right? You can see them all over the place. But if their focus is not, their attention isn't on service, rather their focus and attention is on acquirement for themselves. So that is the delusion of life, exploitation. Vichitrata hine hale nirvishesh hoy, kala
Kalasai Matulya
simuttalya
Seya
seya aprakrata noy.
Aprakratanai. The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental.
Because he's not transcendental, because the Mayavad isn't transcendental. So the Mayavad cannot conceive of a transcendental personality.
Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm.
That's all he has. He misses the splendor of this Vichitrata, this astonishing characteristic, when the whole of the senses are jolted in total astonishment of the beauty and speciality of Krishna, or in astonishment at Krishna's relationships with his mother, Krishna's relationships with his sakhas, Krishna's relationship with the gopis in particular, with Sri Radhika, with Sri Lalita. His relationship with these personalities is utterly astonishing. These relationships, they are of a transcendental nature. So the Mayavad, he's disqualified from even practically hearing about the speciality and beauty of these qualities. Kande
Kandagyan
gyana hoye
hai
dharma
dharme
ache
ache
sunishchaya
sunishchaya
prakriti
prakrita haile
hoyle
kabu
kabul aprakratanaya.
aprakratanaya. Such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected. It is prakrita, materialistic, and should never be given credence as aprakrita dharma.
Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is begging us, please take this delightful, sweet, relishable, personal path of bhakti, of our relationship with the Supreme and all his entourage. So we're up to page 481, I believe,
Yes.
and we're coming through all the different angas, and we've reached the last 5 angas. And the last 5 angas, first of all, we discussed Bhagavatam. That was the first of them. and then we discussed Sadhu Sangha, and then we've discussed Nam Kirtan.
Before that, Sri Murti Seva.
Oh, Sri Murti, yes, was there.
60th.
Yes, and then Nam Sankirtan. And now today we're coming. We went through Mathuravas.
Yes.
We went through there. So, okay, so now we've got this final question. We've almost finished this chapter. So it's just a wrap up, more or less. And Vijay is inquiring from Babaji, is there anything else that you consider is going to be favorable for our understanding of this topic? We're in the same topic. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very explicit. Okay, so kindly tell us.
Vijay, kindly tell us if there is something more that we should know in relation to this process. Babaji, the Shastras sometimes describe some intermediate fruits of these angas of bhakti in order to create ruchi for bhajan in those who are extroverted and impious.
In other words, sometimes Shastra will say something that's not in the direction of Bhakti Sar, just to encourage those devotees who need that encouragement. If they're particularly extroverted, that means they're not very able to become introverted to introspect these topics. Or if they're very impious, if they're sinful, then the Shastras will declare an option, so to speak, to begin, just like in Bhagavad Gita. We have the first 6 chapters, and we only have the Bhakti chapters are in the center. And then the last 6 chapters are like Gyan, describing us actually how to come to Bhakti. It's not that all the chapters are pointing to Bhakti. It's like the first chapter, for example, it's about on the battlefield and uh, pointing out all the different personalities and so on. This isn't direct Bhakti, but it's going to be supportive of Bhakti. So this is like an enticement to carry people into the topic. It's like in Srimad Bhagavatam, we get the most incredible topics. In the 7th chapter, for example, it's about Ashwatthama chopping the heads off all those young children. It's so sensational. But that might take someone's interest into studying the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But what is this about when something so horrific was actually took place? What is the nature of this huge battle that took place while Krishna was present? How can that be condoned, so to speak, as righteousness? Why is this book describing things of that nature? But it's attracting. It's not always right in your face. It's just like the mother will give the child the medicine, but she'll put plenty of jam on it. On the spoon, she has the medicine. Your mother used to do that. And then she puts jam on it to hide the taste of the medicine. And she said, now have some nice jam. But inside the jam is the medicine. So the mother wants to give the medicine, but it's disguised with the sugar coating. Our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would give much sugar coating to his disciples to actually encourage them. Otherwise, they would become discouraged if they knew how strict this path actually is. When you get onto this path, the rules and regulations are very sweet to embrace if you know the aim and object of the rules and regulations. But if you don't know the aim and objects, it seems to be restricting your material pleasures. What, I can't go to the movies? I can't have sex with my girlfriend? This seems to be restrictive, but to initially. But then when we understand the depth and the purpose of the Shastras and how beneficial they are for bringing us, the rishis have created the rules and regulations to give us support all the way through our journey. That's why they're there. But they're not always directly bhakti. It's like this chapter is about Vaidhi Bhakti. It's about the angas of devotion. So not all of them are pointing in the direction of Shuddha Bhakti, of pure Bhakti, but they are all supportive of that path. So they can all be, without a doubt, fully embraced. There's no problem with any of it. You want, if you've heard about the beautiful pastimes between Radha and Krishna, some may think, oh, this is a boring chapter. Why do I want to hear all these angas? But without this platform, you will misconstrue the next chapters. You won't have the proper foundation. Just like in the Bhagavatam, we said many times, the first 9 cantos, creating that platform for our entrance into the 10th canto. So essential. So essential. We have to realize that everyone has different adhikas and different proclivities. And Krishna is impartial to everyone. He's not just going to speak to those greatly advanced personalities. He wants to bring all the people to the conclusion of what is bhakti. Give everyone an opportunity, because sometimes coming from the lowest place, we were just talking before in the class about Prahlad Bhakti. He comes from a demon family. His father is Hiranyakashipu. His mother was the wife of Hiranyakashipu. She had Prahlad within her. The demigods wanted to kill Kayadu, I think her name is.
Hmm.
Wanted to kill her because she had Prahlad within her womb. But Narad Rishi came and said, no, no. This is a Mahabhagavat within his womb. Demigods were confused. How can Mahabhagavat come from Hiranyakashipu? But then Narad himself instructs that child for 60,000 years. So that child has got demon roots, but he comes to the most highest platform. So if we're coming from a dharmic place or an adharmic place, when it comes to the point of bhakti, there's no consideration for dharmic or adharmic. If you come to the point of bhakti, it's like being a brahmana. It has no consideration in the complete realm of bhakti. Whether you're a brahmana or not a brahmana is not the qualification for bhakti. If it was, then Krishna would be criticized as being impartial. Only certain people can actually come there. So it's not like that. It's not sectarian, and neither is it partial. However, the main fruit.
However, the main fruit of all these angas.
So understand this sentence in relationship to the whole chapter that we've just read.
Hmm.
To create ruchi for bhajan in those who are extroverted and impious. Okay.
However, the main fruit of all these angas is to develop attachment to Krishna.
Mm.
All the activities of one who is knowledgeable and expert in bhakti must be within the angas of bhakti and not within the angas of karma.
Yes. So we should be very diligent about how we are conducting every step of our life in all our areas, all our dealings, all the way through. There should be no rasabas, so to speak, no stepping outside of these 64 angas. Otherwise, that's not going to be supportive of our ultimate goal.
The practice of knowledge, gyan, and renunciation, vairagya, may sometimes assist somebody to enter within the temple of bhakti, but gyan and vairagya are not angas of bhakti because they make the heart hard, whereas bhakti is very soft and tender by nature.
How do they make the heart hard? If you're performing intense austerities, you will naturally perhaps criticize people who aren't making any attempt to control their senses or performing any type of austerity at all. You will perhaps take that kind of attitude towards people. You'll become a little proud of your
Egos.
austerities. Ego, yes, that ego will be there. So that will not be helpful for bhakti in any way. So we must be very cautious about how we proceed, because Gyan and Vairagya are like the two sons of bhakti. They're very helpful. But if either of them takes precedence more than devotion, more than bhakti, then it's going to be detrimental. I know devotees who are almost like yogis, very strict in so many areas and so on. But they've become very hard and callous. They don't have the gentleness that is important for bhakti. Bhakti is very soft, charming, sweet. Everything about bhakti is beautiful. It's not harsh. Sometimes austerities can become very harsh if they're not under guidance. We perform austerities, we fast on Ekadashi, we rise early for Mangalati, etc. We chant through the day, we chant hours, in the day. We study, we do so many things that a materialist will consider very austere. But because they're all under guidance, they're not really austere at all. It's not like focused austere. The meditation of someone who's performing austerities, a yogi, is that I am the doer. I am doing this. By my efforts, I will crash the gates of heaven. If I fast for so long, or I chant for so long, or I do these particular activities in a very austere way, then I'm thinking I'm going to crash the gate. Bhakti is dependent on kripa. It's the avaroha panta, descending path, not the ascending path. I can't climb up to that realm. I'm sitting, waiting for kripa to descend. It's a big one. I've experienced this much in my life, trying to do more than uh, by myself, so to speak, in a very independent way, like a yogi.
There's a taste for
Yes, there's a taste for austerity. You get some satisfaction with your ability to control the senses. And in the ultimate, you become very satisfied with being able to control the senses. But then where is Krishna? You've gone well without him, he's not there at the end. That's what that verse, or that preface in Venugit that I was mentioning the other day. It's not about our efforts. It's about Krishna's mercy, and hearing about Krishna, talking about Krishna, knowing about Krishna, and knowing what is the essence of bhakti. So it's not about austerity, but austerity is built into it. Austerity is a part of it.
naturally.
Yes, naturally, exactly. It comes naturally. It's not an effort. When it starts to be an effort, it's you in the center. You're making the effort. And then you forget about where the potency is actually coming from. You think, oh, the potency is coming from me. We read about great yogis, and at the very end of their practice, they realize, oh, well, I am God. They've realized the God particle within themselves. Then they realize that, oh, well, I am God, actually. And then that's the complete death knell. Sayuja Mukti. Finished.
Bhaktas accept Gyan and Vairagya that manifest on their own accord through the practice of bhakti.
This is what you said. By its own accord, you accept the austerities that come.
But Gyan and Vairagya cannot be the cause of bhakti, and bhakti easily awards results that knowledge and renunciation cannot give.
That's very important. Bhakti gives all the results. Why are you performing austerities? What is the purpose of the austerities? That we have to consider. If the purpose of the austerities is to please Krishna, then the austerities are not necessary.
Sadhan bhakti gives rise to such ruchi for Hari Bhajan that even very strong attachment to sense objects decrease and vanishes. The sadhak
We can
must
practice this and we can prove this, Previously, there was one devotee, and he mentioned a trick, so to speak. While you're chanting, the mind is going on, and the mind might be thinking, well, I have to do this today, I have to do this today, and I don't want to. So you write it down on a piece of paper, the activities that you want to perform in the day. And you might have 6 or 7 activities there. And by the time you've completed your japa, you look at that list of activities and you don't actually have to do any of them. You might have to do one of them. Only one of them might be actually important. But all the rest have just become purified by the potency of the holy name. I've done this. It's a fact. It works. Because we think we are so important. We have so many things to do in the world. And they naturally come in our mind when we're contemplating. So just empty the mind of that and write it down so you don't have to think about it anymore. That was the idea. But at the end of the chanting, that list, doesn't always have so much significance.
The sadhak must always practice yukta vairagya and always stay away from the spirit of deceitful
Deceitful.
renunciation. Deceitful renunciation.
Yukta Vairagya is the Vairagya that Rupa Goswami has defined. There is Falgu Vairagya, Makrita Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya, there's a river called Falgu, and it runs under the ground. You can't actually see it. It's like deceptive, so to speak. You're not going to get any result by just performing that dry renunciation. The monkeys are so renounced. They just live in trees. They've got no clothes, no possessions, no nothing, but they have 100 wives. So that sort of renunciation is condemned, Makrita Vairagya or Falgu Vairagya. But Yukta Vairagya, where you utilize your last paisa in service to Krishna. Everything you have, you utilize only for Krishna's benefit. If wealth comes to you, all well and good, then spend it in Krishna's service. And if wealth doesn't come to you, not a problem, you just perform your service, like Srila Gokishore Das Babaji or any of the great, like Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri took a vow called Ayur Chaka. Ayur Chaka means he doesn't ask anybody for anything. He doesn't ever beg. He has nothing, zero. And he never asks anyone for anything. He waits until the Lord provides him, just like he was sitting in Govardhan Hill and one cowherd boy, Krishna, came with some milk. Madhavendra Puri said, "Oh, how did you know I was fasting?" And Krishna, in disguise as a cowherd boy, says, "Oh, the ladies in the well, they told me." So they noticed that he hadn't eaten. But this was the life of Madhavendra Puri. Complete dependence on Krishna. Total dependence on Krishna. Like even Prahlad. Prahlad is famous for his nishta. That is the principal characteristic and quality of Prahlad. His nishta is absolute. When Hiranyakashipu would throw him off a cliff, Prahlad wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm such a devotee, Krishna will catch me." Of course he wasn't thinking that. He was thinking, well, if I get crushed to death, that's Krishna's desire. And if Krishna saves me, that's also his desire. Rake Krishna Mareke, Mare Krishna Rakeke. Krishna can save me or not save me. But I'm not thinking, because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, necessarily that Krishna is going to save me. I'm thinking whatever Krishna wants to do. I'm not the controller of Krishna. It's Krishna's world. He's the controller. We're so conditioned by putting our hands out and asking Krishna for something. Please, Lord, help me for this. Please help me for this. Help me for this. I can remember when I was a kid, I used to pray to pass exams. So I wasn't so smart. How can I would pray to God diligently. And sometimes he would let me and sometimes not. But we would always be asking, what is it? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us this day our daily bread. We have to ask him for our daily, as if he doesn't know that we need daily bread. He's so ignorant of our situation. We have to go to the church to actually pray for something like that. This is not bhakti, not bhakti at all. Bhakti at all means fully sharanagat, fully dependent. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam, rakshisisyati vishvasya, gopritva varanam tata, atmanishkepa karpanya, sadvidi sharanagati. These 6 symptoms are the symptoms of bhakti: to accept everything favorable for my bhakti, reject everything that is unfavorable, accept Krishna as my protector, and accept Krishna as my maintainer, and everything in humility at his lotus feet. These symptoms are Sharanagat. So this is like the first step on the path of bhakti. Even though Sharanagati itself, by itself, is not bhakti. It's not Shuddha bhakti. the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is not Shuddha Bhakti. It's still about you, my surrender, my acceptance, or my rejection. It's still about me at the center, right? It's like the yogi. He's at the center. Krishna's not yet at the center. But unless we come to the platform of Sharanagati, we can't begin the devotional path. It's exactly, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj gives a very nice example. It's like you have to get dressed to go out on the street every day. But the purpose in life is not getting dressed. That's not the aim and object of life, is to get dressed, right? I don't think all day, well, what am I going to dress today? That's not the object of life. But you have to get dressed to go on the street. So we have to come to that consciousness of full Sharanagat. And then bhakti will begin to unfold. So we have to see it in its proper perspective. Bhakti sa means everything for Krishna. I'm not even in the equation. Exactly like the gopis. They left their homes. They left their sons. They left their family. They left their fathers. They left their mothers. They left everything. They left their shyness. They left their fear. They left their dharma. What didn't they leave? They left their reputation. A young 15-year-old girl, a dharmic 15-year-old girl, her dharma is more important to her than her life, her reputation in the world. What the elders are saying is so important to a young girl. Her reputation is so important, and she leaves all that behind, knowing that she will be condemned because she's running out of the house alone, not with another girl. She's running alone to the forest. And the forest is a very intimidating place. The forest does have tigers. It does have lions. It does have poisonous snakes. And it was dark night, even though there was a moon, but when they got into the forest, it was pitch black. And they fearlessly ran through to give pleasure to Krishna. That was their objective. Their objective was not to dance with Krishna. That was not their objective at all. They heard the song of that flute saying to the gopis, each individual gopi, 300 billion gopis, received a distinct message just to their hearts, saying, I will give up my body unless you come now under the Vamsivat and meet me. Try to consider deeply what they sacrificed. They didn't know that Yoga Maya was going to supply replicas of themselves within their homes, so their husbands and family wouldn't even know they had gone. They had no idea of that. They ran out fearlessly. So this path we have to traverse fearlessly, with no hanging on for security to anything in the material world. This will be what death is like. At the time of death, our minds will want to grab onto something and try to prolong our life here. This is how most materialists are in the world. They want to prolong even 1 second more, but they can't. But we know that death is a fact and it will come. So, and Krishna comes as death, so the devotee can embrace that time of leaving the body, looking away from the contamination of this ridiculous material world. How can we be attached to this world of pain, misery, old age, death? I was just talking to my godbrother in England, and he's the same age as me. Now he's almost in a wheelchair all the time. He has to have someone looking after him all the time. How can you be attached to the world when you're in that sort of situation? How can you think this is a great place? This is the illusion of Maya. Don't underestimate the illusion of Maya. She's very, very powerful. Have done with it. Make our strong commitment and attachment only to transcendence, only to cross that river. Just perform whatever functions we have to in this world, but keep our focus on the spiritual reality, because this world is a temporary world. It's not true. It's not false also, but it's temporary. So why should we spend time here? So Yukta Vairagya, utilizing everything in the service of Krishna. This is what Rupa Goswami has defined this as.
Yukta Vairagya means to accept all paraphernalia according to need and in a detached mood, knowing it to be related to Krishna.
We see pictures of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Naishtika Brahmachari, so renounced from this world, sitting in a beautiful motor car, having so many servants carry bags around, wearing foreign coat, fancy shoes, looking very smart. This is Yukta Vairagya, because he was going to meet Lord and ladies of the British Raj. So he knew that they would have a better impression if he arrived looking like that. If he arrived just wearing a loincloth, they wouldn't even let him in the door. Definitely they wouldn't let him in the door. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says the same thing. He says all he wants to do is chant Hare Krishna under a tree beside the Ganga. But if he does that, who will answer the call of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So instead he has to buy air tickets all around the world and go preaching to the people. And sometimes wearing, whatever silk cloth, driving in Rolls Royces. He'd have Rolls Royces come to pick him up at the airport, and reporters would say, "Oh, don't you think this is a bit rich, coming in a Rolls Royce?" And he would say very boldly, "I am the only one who deserves this Rolls Royce. I am in the service of God. You are in the service of dog." He would say to them directly. And he would say it in such a congenial way, they would laugh, They understood. So Prabhupada was completely expert, in his dealing with reporters. One time a reporter came to him and said, "Oh, why do you shave your head?" Like attacking, And then Prabhupada immediately retorted, "Why do you shave your legs?" And then he said, "Better to have a cool head than cold legs."
So why do you
She's
report
wearing
to-
a short miniskirt, But just immediately, the pure devotee is in touch with the Lord. So everything that he's saying is detached from this world. He has no attachment whatsoever. Therefore, he can perceive the stupidity of man's gyrating, dancing on the stage. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he says, frantically dancing on the stage of karma. This is the nature of the materialists. They're frantically dancing on the stage of karma. They're performing their karmic activities, dancing frantically. Okay.
If things are actually related to Sri Hari, it is artificial to renounce them as worldly because of greed for mukti.
Greed for mukti, greed for renunciation. I still have a taste for that renunciation. It is a nice taste when you don't have anything. You're walking through the world and you've given up everything. There's a certain ruchi in that. But that's not bhakti. Whether you've got everything or you don't have anything, that's not the point. Madhavendra Puri's heart was overflowing with affection for Krishna only. That's why he could be completely renounced from the world. But he wasn't getting a taste from his material renunciation. He was getting a taste from his service to Krishna. What does he say at the very end of his life? Ayidina dayadrinatahe, maturanath kalapalokite, dasyaste, no, hridayam tvad aloka kataram, what's it? Brahmati, I can't remember all of it. But he's calling out to Krishna in such a beautiful mood. Ayedina dayadrinatahe, maturanath karabalokyate, hridayam tvad aloka kataram, brahmayam, and the rest of it I can't remember. But very, very beautiful verse that he's calling out in great, great lamenting separation from Krishna.
This is called Falgu Vairagya. Therefore, Adhyatmika Gyan and Falgu Vairagya should be given up.
These are deep conceptions. Don't just walk past this thing and think, oh, yes, I'm knowing all that. They are very deep in the heart. They're very deep conceptions that we have to purify. Even if you become a very advanced devotee, still this desire for gyan and vairagya may still be lurking.
Sometimes bhakti is displayed to acquire wealth,
This is it.
disciples,
Yes.
and so on.
Yes, we see.
But this is far from pure bhakti.
Mm.
In fact, such a show of bhakti is not usually an anga of
Not
bhakti at
actually.
all.
Not actually. Not actually an
Not
anga.
actually an anga of bhakti at all.
Just because you have 60,000 disciples doesn't mean that you have quantities of bhakti. But the little devotee in the street who's ignorant will think that. But we not the little devotee in the street because we're reading Jaiva Dharma. We're becoming educated. So we shouldn't be bowled over, so to speak, just because some guru has so many thousands of disciples. It doesn't mean it's completely correct just by the numbers of people. There's an expression, 300 billion drunks are not necessarily correct. If they're all saying go that way, but they're all drunk, what's the point? You understand what that means?
Discrimination, viveka, and other qualities are also not angas of bhakti. They are qualities of the practitioner of bhakti. Similarly, yama, niyama, good conduct, cleanliness, and so on are naturally present in people who are favorable towards Krishna. So they are also not angas of bhakti.
Yeah, it's a natural aspect. Sattvic, you naturally come to the mode of sattva, pure goodness.
Qualities such as inward and outward purity, austerity, and sense control take shelter of Krishna's bhaktas of their own accord.
Yes, you don't have to cultivate them separately. Big mistake. When you start to do it separately, you start to think, I'm the controller. I'm separately trying to manifest these good qualities. I'm separately trying to be very generous or trying to be very knowledgeable, or all these things. This is all a separate endeavor that is going away from the path of bhakti. Bhakti sa is only one focused.
Some of the angas of bhakti that I have mentioned are principal angas, and one will attain perfection by firmly performing sadhan of any of these principal angas or several of them. I have explained everything about Vaidhi sadhan bhakti in a very brief way. Now you should understand this clearly. Take it to heart and practice it with full force.
Take it to heart. Use your God-given common sense and intelligence to figure out what this is about. Don't act stupid and say you don't understand it. In heart, we understand it. Sometimes we try and pretend that we don't understand it so we can actually deviate. But if we consider all this very seriously, it's very, very simple to understand what is the right direction. The heart will naturally dictate what is correct and what is not correct. We should have faith in that.
When Vrajanath and Vijay Kumar heard these instructions from Babaji, they offered Shashtanga Dandavat Pranam and said, Prabhu, please deliver us. We are trapped in the deep trench of pride. Babaji Mahashai replied, Certainly Krishna will bestow his mercy upon you. That night, uncle and nephew returned home very late. Thus ends the 20th chapter of Jaiva Dharma entitled Prameya Abhideya Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti.
We should understand that all those Nitya Siddha Parikas, all those personalities within the spiritual transcendental realm, are the most humble personalities conceivable. If we want to join them, there is only one route to join them, by also becoming completely humble. In whatever false, we say false, just like the ego is false. So the pride is also false because it's pride in the false ego is completely futile. But if we carry this or try to expect, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave a beautiful description of humility. He said, having no expectations. I'm performing my sadhana bhakti, but I'm not expecting some remuneration. Whatever Krishna wants to give me, I will accept as his mercy. Like with Prahlad, thrown off a cliff, thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil, given poisoned food, trampled by elephants, beaten by demons. Whatever Krishna wants to arrange, that's okay. He's the controller. Aslisya Vapadam Pranashto Mam. This last verse of the Shikshastakam. If you want to embrace me or you want to hurt me by not being present before me, if you want to be with many other lovers, whatever the situation is, you're still my prananath, birth after birth. No diminution from the lover's point of view, from Radhika's point of view. Whatever Krishna wants to do is okay. Understand? It's very beautiful, you know? It is, it's beautiful. These are good topics. So, Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti Ki Jai.
Yes.
This was chapter 20.
Is there time for questions?
Yes?
One question about you spoke about Shuddha Bhakti.
Yeah.
So and if it's not Shuddha Bhakti, then you said it's not Bhakti.
No.
Yeah. So
If it's mixed with karma or
Yeah.
gyan,
Yeah.
then it's Mishra. Gyan Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti. Sometimes Arop Siddha Bhakti, which is not direct, is considered Bhakti, but it's not Uttam Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti and Uttam Bhakti are the same. So our consideration all the time is what is Uttam Bhakti? What is the topmost Bhakti? I'm not going to settle for less than the topmost. What's your question?
What is the destiny if someone is practicing Bhakti, but he's doing he's not reached Shuddha Bhakti at the end of his life? I don't know, maybe at the last minute of his last breath, maybe that's possible. But what is the destiny of such a person?
Then in his next birth, he will take whatever was fruitful on the path of bhakti into his next birth. It's always described like a bank balance. Whatever we're doing in the path of bhakti, according to our ability, now, our adhikar, whatever that is going to keep building our bank balance. And if we don't reach the final conclusion, there's no loss or diminution for that sadhak at all. In the next birth, you will catch up to that place and carry on again.
So there will be a next birth. Although someone may have achieved very high level of bhakti, but is not reached Shuddha Bhakti, still he will have to take the birth again in material world.
Practically everyone has to take a birth again in this material world.
What do you mean?
Because even if you reach the stage, you can only reach the stage of bhav in this life.
Yeah.
You don't have the adhikar to contain prem. You would explode. So in order to reach the stage of prem, you have to take birth in a gopi's womb, where Krishna is performing his pastimes,
Oh, I see.
and associate with the gopis there. But that stage of prem will continue, and you'll have to take another birth. We may have to take 4 or 5 or 6 more births to actually achieve even Shuddha Bhakti.
Oh, in Vrindavan, in the material world. Because you said
For us now, general sadhaks,
Okay.
I know Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to encourage everyone. It's like putting jam on the medicine thing, saying, yes, just right now you can have it, you can have it, you can have it. But it's actually much longer than that. It's a process. But really, Prabhu, you're Asaf, right?
Yeah.
Really, Prabhu, it's like we shouldn't be so concerned with the result, because the result is in the hands of Krishna. We should only be really concerned with my sincerity to please Krishna now to the best of my ability.
And that brings my next question, if there's time.
Yeah, go on.
So I know this chapter is about Vaidhi,
Yes,
but still, I'm just wondering, if someone is practicing Raganuga,
yes.
doesn't that make it much easier to and more how to say not more promising? If someone is practicing Raganuga, wouldn't his
Vaidhi Bhakti,
chances be better,
definitely,
so to say.
of course. But understand one thing, everyone has to perform Vaidhi Bhakti, whether they're
Yes, of
Raganuga Bhaktas or just straight Vaidhi Bhaktas. Vaidhi is the external activity. It's like following Ekadashi, going to Mangalati, doing all these regulative, following all the different festivities. This is all Vaidhi, it's all external. That's Vaidhi. Raganuga is internal. So that Raga Anuga sadhak is performing his bhajan internally, but he's externally following all the rules and regulations.
I'm referring because I'm reading. I reached chapter 5 here.
Okay.
So then there's a part where Vaishnav Das is instructing
Brahmanas.
Huh?
Lahari Mahashai.
I think yeah, and then he's telling him, so what is the feeling in you? What are you attracted to? Because he's asking, what should I practice? Lahiri
Yes.
Mashai.
Yes, yes.
And then Vaishnav Das tells him, so what does your heart get attracted to? And then he says, I think practicing the rules and regulations, then he instructs him to practice Vaidhi.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's the first stage.
that's the first stage. But then if someone is going to the next stage of Raganuga, so that makes things easier for him, doesn't it?
Yes, that's the natural sequence. That's hopefully the sequence. You will go to the next stage if you come in contact with those who are practicing Raganuga.
That's
You won't come naturally to Raganuga Bhakti unless you associate with those who are actually performing that. Because those who are not wanting to follow that path will always be advocating the rules and regulations more prominently than the internal meditation.
Yes. So, last question, I hope. So someone who's following the Ragatmika
Gun?
Bhakta,
Yes.
then in the end of his life, his destiny might also, next life, his destiny might also be to take birth again.
Maybe understand one thing, nothing is like set in concrete.
Yeah,
Every single individual in existence has a separate ability, adhikar, and relationship with Krishna.
I know it's not technical black and white.
It can't be like that. But if you have reached a high point of success with your practicing Rag Mag in this life, then it is most likely at the time of death that you can be awarded a body of a gopi born in Boma Vrindavan, where Krishna is performing on another planet where he's performing his pastimes, and take birth there to directly see Krishna. And then again, by the association of the Nityasiddha Parikars, then you can come closer to Krishna in that. It's all by association, gradually, like that. That's how it works. That's the process. First of all, we associate with Bhakti Devi herself through the heart of Guru who has Bhakti, or the heart of anyone who has Shuddha Bhakti. That is the only way to actually get that seed of Shuddha Bhakti. It doesn't manifest by itself. It's there inherent within everybody. Nitya siddhyasya bhavasya prakritam hidi sadyate. Within every heart is the potential seed of Shuddha Bhakti. But unless you come in contact with someone who has Shuddha Bhakti, it will never begin to fructify. It's an amazing, dynamic. It has to come in contact with someone who has Bhakti. And then the whole door opens. Because that person who is in touch, who has Bhakti, then he's connected fully to the Guru Parampara. Then the whole wave of all the mercy from Rupa Goswami, from Mahaprabhu, will actually come into the heart of that practitioner. But it has to come through a doorway. And the doorway is the actual person sitting in front of you who's going to open that door. There is not another way. You can't just do it by yourself.
The reason I'm asking all these questions, I just recently heard class by Narayan Maharaj, Maharaj, and then I heard he's being criticized a lot for talking too much about Raganuga. So therefore, I would like to know more about that.
Because if someone's not practicing Raganuga, if someone's not under the guidance of someone who's not practicing Raganuga, they're going to be very envious.
Yes.
So that's just the nature of the material world. It's crackling with envy. Everywhere is envy. Everywhere is envy. Except amongst the Shuddha Bhaktas. Okay, we have to stop. It's late. Dandavasratu, thank you for your questions. Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevaccha, Patitanam Pavnibhyo, Vaishnavevyo, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Gold Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.